There was a time, not so long ago, when Boeing was the undisputed king of commercial aviation, the company that built the 747, the aircraft that democratized global air travel. The company whose engineers designed the 777, still considered one of the greatest commercial aircraft ever built. The company whose Dreamliner promised to revolutionize long-haul travel in ways that nobody had imagined. Boeing wasn't just an aircraft manufacturer, it was an American institution, a symbol of engineering excellence, industrial might, and national pride. And right now, in 2026, that institution is in the middle of a crisis so deep, so structural, and so consequential that the question is no longer whether Boeing has fallen behind Airbus. The question is whether Boeing can find its way back, and how long it will take. Let's start with the number that defines the modern era of this rivalry. In the 10 years from 2015 to 2024, Airbus received orders for 8,950 aircraft and delivered 7,043, while Boeing received net orders for only 5,012 aircraft and delivered 5,312. Read that again. Over a decade, the most important decade in the history of commercial aviation's recovery from COVID. Digitalization and the transition to next-generation aircraft, Airbus, received nearly twice as many orders as Boeing. That is not a bad year. That is not a cyclical downturn. That is a fundamental shift in the competitive balance of the only industry on Earth, where two companies supply almost every commercial aircraft flying dot. To understand how Boeing got here, you have to go back to March 2019, the moment everything changed. Boeing's trajectory was severely disrupted by the global 737 MAX grounding from March 2019 through November 2020 following two fatal accidents, allowing Airbus to surge ahead in deliveries and orders. The MAX grounding wasn't just a production problem. It was a reputational catastrophe. Airlines that had ordered MAX jets canceled orders or delayed deliveries. Regulators around the world who had historically deferred to the FAA on certification now began conducting their own independent reviews. The trust that Boeing had built over decades with airlines, with regulators, with passengers was damaged in ways that a software fix could not repair. And then, just as Boeing was beginning to stabilize, the quality problems emerged. Internal whistleblowers came forward with accounts of production shortcuts, inadequate inspections, and a manufacturing culture that had prioritized speed and cost over the engineering rigor that had defined Boeing at its best. Even after the FAA increased the monthly 737 MAX production cap, Boeing continued to operate below maximum output, prioritizing quality and regulatory compliance over quantity. That sentence captures the paradox of Boeing's current situation perfectly. The company is constrained not by demand, airlines want its aircraft, but by its own ability to build them to the standard required. That is an extraordinary position for a company that once set the global standard for manufacturing excellence. Airbus, meanwhile, has been quietly and methodically building the kind of structural advantage that compounds over time. Airbus leveraged its narrow-body dominance in 2025, with the A320neo family accounting for the majority of deliveries, as multiple final assembly lines across Europe, Asia, and North America gave Airbus a structural advantage in throughput. The A320neo family is the backbone of the global airline industry. It is the aircraft that carriers use for short and medium-haul routes, the highest volume, highest frequency segment of commercial aviation. The A320neo family commands approximately 60% of global narrow-body orders, underpinned by its superior per-seat fuel economics, and most significantly, by late 2025. The A320 family had officially surpassed the 737 as the most delivered jetliner in aviation history. The 737, Boeing's most iconic product, the aircraft that defined short-haul travel for 50 years, has been overtaken. That is a milestone that nobody at Boeing would have thought possible a decade ago. The wide-body picture is equally concerning for Boeing's long-term competitive position. The Airbus A350 has established itself as the aircraft of choice for ultra-long-haul operations. The routes where Singapore Airlines, Qatar Airways, and Cathay Pacific stake their brand reputations on delivering the best possible passenger experience. Boeing's answer to the A350, the 777X, has been in development for years and has faced repeated certification delays. Boeing is targeting a production standard aircraft flight for the 777X in 2026. a key step toward eventual certification and entry into service. But targeting and achieving are very different things for a company that has missed certification timelines before. Every month the 777X remains uncertified is another month that airlines planning ultra-long-haul expansion are forced to choose between waiting for Boeing or ordering more. The 350s from Airbus, many of them are not waiting now. To be fair to Boeing, and fairness requires acknowledging this, the competitive picture in 2025 and early 2026 shows genuine signs of recovery. Over the course of 2025, Boeing received 908 net orders after cancellations, outpacing Airbus by over 100 orders, marking the first time in nearly 7 years that Boeing had led Airbus in net orders for a full year. That is a genuinely significant milestone. It means that airlines, despite everything, despite the MAX crisis, despite the quality concerns, despite the delivery delays, are still betting on Boeing's future. The 787 Dreamliner remains one of the most successful wide-body programs in history, with airlines ordering it in large numbers for medium density. Long-haul routes, where its efficiency and flexibility are unmatched. Under new CEO Kelly Ortberg, who took the top job in 2024, Boeing has shown improved production discipline and fourth-quarter revenue ahead of Wall Street expectations. But here is the crucial distinction that gets lost when Boeing celebrates its order recovery. Orders and deliveries are not the same thing. Airbus's backlog advantage built over years of consistent delivery performance, while Boeing was dealing with crisis after crisis, remains enormous. Airbus enters 2026 with around 8,665 aircraft orders in its backlog, representing years of guaranteed production and revenue. Boeing's backlog, while recovering, reflects years of lost ground that cannot be made up quickly, regardless of how many new orders arrive. And Airbus still delivered 193 more planes than Boeing in 2025, meaning that even in a year where Boeing won on orders, Airbus continued to dominate on the metric that actually generates revenue, getting aircraft out the door and into airline hands. The deeper problem for Boeing is cultural and structural, not just operational. The Boeing that built the 747 and the 777 was an engineering company led by engineers who understood that the mission was to build the best possible aircraft. The Boeing that emerged from its 1997 merger with McDonnell Douglas gradually became a company where financial engineering was valued as highly as aerospace engineering, where quarterly earnings targets shaped decisions that should have been driven by long-term product excellence. This cultural shift has been well documented and widely discussed within the industry, and it is the root cause of the quality problems, the production shortcuts, and the certification failures that have defined Boeing's crisis years. Airbus's recent quality issues and Boeing's order recovery have led some to see the tide changing. For Boeing under Ortberg's leadership, but changing a corporate culture that has been decades in the making is not a one project. The real reason Boeing is losing the war against Airbus is not the MAX crashes. As devastating as they were, it is not the production quality issues as serious as they are. It is the compounding effect of a decade of strategic choices that prioritized financial metrics over engineering excellence, short-term performance over long-term product investment, and shareholder returns over the kind of patient, disciplined innovation that built Boeing's reputation in the first place. Airbus didn't beat Boeing by being lucky. It beat Boeing by being consistent, by delivering aircraft on schedule, by investing in next-generation products like the A320neo and a 350 at the right time, and by building a manufacturing infrastructure capable of meeting the demand that consistency generates. Boeing is recovering. The orders are coming back. The new CEO is saying the right things. But recovering from a decade of self-inflicted damage, in an industry where trust is everything and backlogs span years, is a journey measured not in quarters, but in generations. Asterisk, the 777X story is perhaps the single most damaging chapter in Boeing's recent history, not because the aircraft is fundamentally flawed, but because of what the delays represent. The Boeing 777X, once slated for delivery in 2020, has now been pushed back to 2027, a 6-year delay attributed to development challenges, flight testing pauses, and labor strikes. 6 years. Think about what 6 years means in commercial aviation. Every airline that was counting on the 777X for its long-haul expansion plans has had to find alternatives. Some of them turned to the Airbus A350. Some ordered more 787s. Some kept flying aging 777-200ERs longer than they wanted to. And every one of those decisions, however understandable, represents a relationship with Boeing that was strained. A moment of doubt about whether Boeing could deliver what it promised. Boeing took a $4.9 billion charge on the 777X program and delayed the first delivery to 2027. With the company emphasizing this was due to a certification risk rather than a new technical defect. But for airlines that have been waiting since